Ahoy friends, welcome to building the Alpha Dory. I'm Dan and this is a project to build a Chamberlain style racing dory. We're building to the plans in John Gardner's The Dory book, illustrations by Sam Manning. Today we'll be out in the shop. We've got plenty to do. There's a rail cap that still needs to go on. We've got to clean up the rail cap that's glued and nailed. And we've got some trim pieces to put on as well. And we might even end up having to cut the stem and the transom top to shape. We'll see how far we get. So anyway, let's get out there and get going. Okay, so we've got the rail cap ready to roll. Looks like I've got plenty of Tight Bond 3. The only little sort of quick tip I've got is I'm just gonna do a quickie trace on the spot where the rail cap is going to be ending, which means I don't know exactly how far I could or should go with the glue. Alright. Yeah, a little bit of sawdust on there isn't really a big deal. This glue deals pretty well with any sort of sawdust on the surface. So I'll do a sort of quickie glue spread. Here, then I'll do the bottom of the plank, the rail cap, and then I'll go ahead and jump right back on here and wet out any spots that ended up absorbing or drying the glue before last minute before this thing goes on. Yeah, so these, like I was saying, these rails are a very strong way, rigid way of making a rail. There's definitely lighter ways to make a rail, not that these are overly heavy. The blocking in these rails is only 1 inch thick. So this, if you've been following along, you know, but this inner rail is 2 inches, 2¼ inches. But the blocking that fills in behind it is only inch, rough cut pine. It's probably a tiny bit below 1 inch once I've planed it down to fair in with the shear plank and the inner rail. So basically these rails are like miniature side decks. They're built, very similar to a tiny little side deck. And there's a lot of strength, a lot of rigidity, stiffness in that, in these box sections. So it makes for a nice stiff hull, which is great, especially because this is a racing sailboat without a deck. So yeah, it makes for a real stiff rail. The other nice thing about these rails, two other benefits: the width of the rail gives you a little bit more freeboard, effectively, as the rail comes closer to the water. Whereas if you've got a hollow rail, so like I was saying, you know, an open rail is probably going to be lighter than this. It won't have the stiffness, which is fine in a rowboat or something. But if you're looking at a racing sailing craft from the turn of the century, you know, these guys are going for every little bit of performance that they could. This was a this was a type of boat. It wasn't so much a strict racing class as it was a kind of development class with agreed upon construction, hull form, sail area, and whatnot. So these guys are really kind of evolving their dories, you know, over the course of decades or whatever, to perform better and better. So if you had a 1890s Dory Alpha and you put it up against a brand new one, say, and you were able to time travel and put it up against a 1930s Alpha, you know, you'd expect the 1930s boat, if it was sailed as well, to beat the 1890s, just because it would have had significant improvements in the hull shape and the rig over that course of time. So anyway, yeah, so this solid rail is a nice, light, but stiff way to put a rail together. And oh yeah, so it's got the ability to keep a bit of water out because it's solid, so it's in effect, like I was saying, a small side deck. The other nice thing about this rail is it's got enough width to it and a relatively flat surface, so that it's not totally uncomfortable to sit on for for a couple hour day sails or whatever. You probably wouldn't want to be sitting on it all day long, like if you were going to be camp cruising or making a passage of some sort. But in that case, you probably won't be sailing quite as hard anyway. But yeah, it's quite comfortable to sit on if you're out for a day sail or whatever, and you want to hike out a bit, get a bit more performance out of your craft. And then, of course, the seats in this boat, they look like, okay, nothing special, it's just dory seats, right? They go across the boat, which is sort of odd. You know, you'd think, oh, if it's a sailboat, it's going to have seats along the rail. You know, the seats will be like bench seats along the sides, so that people can sit on that seat and sort of get their weight out to the edge of the boat. Which some sailboats do have seats like that, but actually most small one designs have seats like that. But these seats are actually quite important to the sailing performance of the Alpha Dory as well. These thwartship seats. So that cross seat allows the sailor to sit on the seat, straddling the seat, one leg on either side of the seat. And at that point, the seat basically functions as a say a sliding seat in an international canoe, except it doesn't hang out over the rail, of course. So that seat allows you to basically infinitely adjust your weight position side to side in the boat. Now, front to back, like the bench seat, there's not really a lot of adjustment in terms of sailing front to back. I mean, you can definitely sit on the next seat up. Say if you were in light winds and you were headed upwind and you wanted to get the bow down a little bit and make sure the transom wasn't dragging. Or if you were in heavy winds off the wind and you wanted to get some weight further back, you could definitely change the seat you were seated in, and that would affect the trim. But the ability to infinitely adjust your weight towards the center line and out towards the windward rail, or even adjust your weight towards the leeward side of the boat, that's really important in a narrow hull like this one, because the trim of the boat is going to have a big effect on how the boat sails. By the trim, I don't mean fore and aft trim. I'm talking about the amount of heel that you're sailing with, the amount that the boat is tipped to its side. That affects the steering quite a bit, and it also affects the set of the sails. It also affects the waterline shape and the waterline length of the boat. So yeah, it's a really cool way that that these boats are. It's a very versatile way to have the seating, and then of course it works great for rowing as well. The bench seats, because this is definitely almost as much a rowboat as it is a sailboat. It retains that capability anyway from basically generations of this boat originally being developed as a rowing, sailing workboat. So it still retains its ability to row quite well. Alright, so we got this rail glued. We got the glue on the rail. See if we can't cinch this down a bit. Doesn't move. Alright, good. Alright, let's get nailing this on. got plenty of hammers around here, which is kind of nice. When you go to grab for one, there's always one ready to roll. Backing up the nails on the inside of the rail because it's not quite as supported as the nails on the boat, on the shear plank side, which has the entire hull of the boat, keeping it super secure when you're nailing it. There we go. These are all down, looking good. So we're keeping in mind that there is an outer rail going on this hull, so we're going to have to plane this back to flush with the rail so that that outer rail can go on and just lap at the butt joint of these two pieces. Yeah, so anyway, like I was saying, these solid rails just make for a good, kind of perfect, ideal sailing dory rail. Or even, on any small sail and oar boat, but preferably a dory, for sure. One of the great parts about this whole, there is a tendency among, I don't know, just about everybody, I guess, to try and innovate, which is awesome. It's like, it's fun to experiment and whatnot. But if you are contemplating building your own small sailboat, traditional sailboat, I would suggest build the boat with the historic rig, you know, and then after you've built the boat with the historic sail rig that's supposed to go in it, that evolved, you know, over the course of a century plus. With this boat, it's probably almost closer to 2 centuries as far as sailing dories along the coast of Massachusetts. I'd suggest before you come up with a better rig or a better sail plan than the original boats had, maybe build the original sail plan and see how the boat sails with that. You know, see what the characteristics are, and 100% I'll guarantee you that you will discover or rediscover benefits that sail plan has on that hull, and you'll over the course of time come to realize, you know, why this sail plan was developed for this hull shape. There's a sort of recent trend of putting lug rigs on just about any and every type sailboat hull. You know, I'd say if you're going to build an Alpha Dory, or, you know, even if you're building, say, something else from John Gardner's The Dory book, have a close look at the historic rig that John Gardner himself has recorded with that boat. Maybe even build that rig, and then, you know, with that knowledge, then you can innovate from there. You're innovating from a place of knowledge and information versus innovating from a place of, well, gee whiz, wouldn't this be, you know, better somehow? Like everybody else is doing this type of deal, you know? Just a thought. And like I was saying, the rig that's built for this boat is kind of perfect. And so I'm talking about rig innovation and whatnot. It's not just like I'm spitballing here, but this is from my own experiences. When I built the last Alpha Dory, I decided, well, I want a bigger sail plan like this. You know, I've got a 21-foot boat, and I was calculating the sail areas for the Alpha Dory as John Gardner drew it. I'm like, boy, that's a tiny amount of sail area. And this is after I built a number of dories. That's a tiny amount of sail area for a 21-foot dory. So I went ahead and enlarged John Gardner's sail plan by let me think. I raised the mast by 3 feet and gave the boat 3 more feet on the luff-and leech, which actually wasn't bad for sailing where I sail typically, which is down on behind Plum Island on Broad Sound and whatnot. But then I took the boat over to Gloucester the first year for the schooner races, and I was out there in 2.5, 3 foot chop, and I had this big 19-foot mast on the boat, and it was banging and bouncing and weaving, and each wave you'd go into, you could see the mast straining against the shrouds and all. And the sail, you know, I was way over canvassed. We were rail down, and we were bleeding wind off the jib and main, and yeah, it was just crazy. So A year and a half later, when I sold the boat, I had the original sail plan made up from John Gardner from his Dory book, and it took care of all those issues. Now, it was a little bit less sail area when we were out on, say, Broad Sound in the really light breezes, the summer breezes, but not so much less sail area that like the boat didn't still move along. But the big speed advantage was in the higher winds and rougher water, you know, like conditions like off of Gloucester, conditions like off of Marblehead, where the boat was developed for race. In those conditions, you could be powered up and sailing the boat to the best of its abilities rather than overpowered, luffing, spilling wind, luffing the sails, and you know, just more in survival mode where the boat isn't moving as quick as it could. So yeah, it's, you know, like I say, live and learn or whatever, and yeah, you know, oftentimes there's a reason why historic boats are designed and built the way they have been for however many years, 100+ years. Alright, so that's pretty much it. We got to get some clamps on this rail and then should be good to go. Alright, so we've got this rail all clamped, and let's see if we can't get a little bit of cleanup done on the port rail before we're out of time on this video. So let's see, we want to go going with the grain here. Trying to keep the blade up above the heads of the nails that are on in the rail here, the inner rail. Once I get it down close, I'll switch to the belt sander because I don't want to ding my little swirly grain there too, because I don't want to ding my plane blade on the nail heads. Yeah, looking good just about down to the inner face. So I'll quickly run a belt sander along that, and then we'll come back in and do a bevel along this top edge, and then clean up the outside as well. So the outside is going to be, you can probably use a plane on that. We'll use a steel one because we'll be taking off quite a bit more material. About maybe an eighth of an inch overhang on the outside here. Yeah, this is actually taking it down pretty quick, so to it there. Then you'll see what we do on the ends when we're putting on these when we're putting on the trim pieces. You've got to meet up with this thing just so. Alright, pretty close there as well. Yeah, so I'll bring the camera over and you can have a look at what the top plate's gonna look like. And it's pretty well done. Like I said, there's a little bit of sanding and some bevels to put on the top edge, but this will give you an idea. Alright, so we've got the trim piece that goes on over this seam here. And what we'll do is we'll cut back this top plate to the point where it's the exact width of the trim piece we want to put on, and then we'll just cut whatever is extra off with a chisel. But here's the general idea of the rail cap inside and out. And like I say, this will get beveled along the top edge. And then the oarlocks mount directly through through the blocking, and sit on top of this top plate. Rail cap. Thanks for stopping by Building the Alpha Dory. A massive thank you to everyone who has liked, subscribed, supported the channel. Yeah, your comments and questions and all are why we make these videos, so hopefully I'll see you in the comments section, and have a great day.